Welcome to the Brew Crew Review Podcast, the show by fans for fans of your Milwaukee Brewers.
All right, Brewer fans, welcome to another glorious podcast of the Brew Crew Review. It is baseball season, and the Brew Crew Review is back at you with a new episode, and this one's entitled The Triumphant Return of Scott Bartell and John Axford, also the trade deadline stuff. So with that being said, we want to welcome myself, Vince, and Scott back on the podcast after a short hiatus. Scott, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Had a brief hiatus. I was really trying to get Chad back too, but he's even busier than I am. So I guess we'll have to wait at least one more episode for that.
Is Chad back?
No, he's even busier than I was.
I don't know. I guess if Scott's was, I don't know if brief could be said for either of them, but yeah, he's definitely not around. So he does have the information. He can log in anytime. So we'll be waiting for that. But anyway, here we go. It's August. The calendar's turned. There's 2 months of the baseball season left. The Milwaukee Brewers, as we speak, have a 7+ game lead in the NL Central. The trade deadline just came and went, and the Brewers, I guess, we'll get into the specifics of who they gave away and everything, but or maybe we won't. But the players they acquired, I should say, this week were, I guess, the biggest move they acquired from the Arizona Diamondbacks, infielder Eduardo Escobar, and then they made 2 additions to the bullpen, left-handed pitching Daniel Norris from the Detroit Tigers, and then also John Curtis, right-handed pitcher from the Miami Marlins. Previous to that, of course, we had also added Rowdy Tellez earlier this month, and he's been filling in for, I should say late in July, and he's been filling in for Dan Vogelback, who's still injured. And of course, Keston Hiura has henceforth been sent to the minor leagues due to ineffectiveness. So that's where we're at. Going in the head down. I can't speak, guys. After the trade deadline is gone and passed, and those are additions. I guess I'd like to hear both of your guys' thoughts on did the Brewers fulfill? Did they do enough? Did they do more than what you thought they would? Did they do less? Are you happy with the moves? I know we haven't heard from Scott for a while, so let's start with him.
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, I guess when I look at it, I wasn't expecting like any kind of like big all-in move, even though I wanted it, and I'm sure a lot of Brewer fans do. But we made several trades, and we didn't really give up much of anything in any of them. And I think that they're all going to be pretty valuable pieces. I mean, Rowdy is taking basically Vogelbach's spot, and then Escobar is pretty much taking over Shaw's spot at third, and then I don't know where that leaves Urias, but he'll be all right. He'll get at bat. And then as far as the 2 bullpen arms, neither one of them, when you really kind of look at their stats anyway, neither one of them really like set the world on fire. Like these are lockdown players, and yet I feel like just about any bullpen arm that we acquire is going to be really good just because of our past experience now with, over the course of the last year, it feels like anybody we throw out there winds up being a really good pitcher. So, I mean, overall, it was pretty much what I expected. In fact, when you include Rowdy and Adames, now you're talking about basically in the last couple of months, we've acquired like 5 different, like big pieces. So, I mean, that's a lot, you know what I mean? So it's pretty exciting. Overall, pretty much what I had expected.
Yeah, spot on,
great.
Scott.
Yeah, that was great, Scott. No, the deadline acquisitions themselves, I thought were fine. Scott, you alluded to it, but my take on this whole thing is that we really didn't give up much of value. So why not take a flyer on literally any of the guys that we have so far? So it seems like Stearns has at least gotten value for his dollar. I think it could be argued that maybe we should have gone out, and maybe tried to acquire some of the bigger names that were, eventually moved to other teams at the deadline. But other than that, I have no complaints whatsoever. And, at the end of the day, whatever the front office is doing seems to be working. I mean, we continue to win games. We continue to get, a lot of value for the guys that we do have, and we spend a lot less money than the other big time players in the majors do. So, this model seems to work.
Yeah, I think you guys hit it right on the money. I mean, the fact of the matter is we didn't really lose any top players from our farm system, and we improved our ball club. So whenever you can do those two things, I think that's your GM and your front office doing a pretty good job. And this is almost to be expected that the Brewers are going to make some under the radar moves, but that end up being more valuable than they seem. Just as an example, instead of acquiring someone like a more splashier acquisition at the trade deadline, like Trevor Story from the Rockies, who ended up staying put, adding him and playing him at third base would have been a pretty big splash, but it probably would have cost us one of our top 5 prospects, I'm guessing. Instead, we added Eduardo Escobar from the backs for a couple lesser prospects, and I really think that he's not quite as flashy of a name, but I think he is going to end up being a better acquisition than Trevor Story probably would have been. I mean, he's a switch hitter. He can play multiple infield positions. And so basically that versatility that our front office likes. And, I think he's gonna be really valuable. And apparently he's great in the, great clubhouse guy as well. So again, great trade right there. And the other example, let's just take, instead of acquiring like a current closer that was having some success on his team, like a Brad Hand, who the Blue Jays had to pay to get, instead we made a more of an underrated, under the radar move and got like a John Curtis from the Marlins. Didn't have to pay too much. Did cost us a catcher, Peyton Henry, who I was kind of high on. But I mean, we brought him in and we actually have control over him, I think, all the way through 2025 or something. So again, I think he's possibly a better pitcher than someone like Brad Hand or whatever, just as an example. So overall, I mean, those are the type of moves that smart GMs make, and I mean, there's no doubt that Stearns, knows what he's doing, and bringing these guys, Matt Arnold also. I think these guys are going to help make an already first place club even better.
Oh, and on a side note too, when you look at somebody like Brad Hand, he's probably had the worst 2 weeks, 3 weeks of I don't know, the last 3 years of his career. I mean, is that really somebody that you want to acquire right now? I mean, of course he, just got blown up again today, but when it comes to relievers, it's all about what have you done for me lately? And he's just right now, I just would not want any part of him.
Yeah. And I think all told, the biggest acquisition during the season is still going to end up being an addition we made way back, I believe it was in May, and that was Willy Adames, who's coming in. Since we've added it to our offense, I think the number of runs per game has gone up like 2 or 3 runs per game as an overall offense. And I think the little tweaks that we've made since then by bringing in guys and just kind of solidifying it has really made us a great team. And I mean, if you would have told me beginning of the season that Christian Yelich was going to have another really down year, Keston Hiura was going to have such a terrible year that he was going to be in the minors come the trade deadline, and that somehow the Brewers were still going to have a 7+ game lead in first place, I would have said that you were crazy, but here we are.
That acquisition of Adames was back in May. I think it was right around the time that we went on our road trip, which we can also recap this evening.
That's right. We've not had Scott on the podcast. So that was more than a brief hiatus, Scott. You haven't been on a podcast since before the Adames trade. So that's a good portion. That's over like half the current Brewer season, but anyway, I know you've been a very busy man, so.
Ever since the COVID era began, I have no concept of time anymore. My hiatus was somewhere between 2 hours and 2 years. I have no idea.
Speaking of the novel virus, as Vince likes to call it, unfortunately, both of, I guess, our 2 biggest star players on the team, Josh Hader and Christian Yelich, have both tested positive for that within the last 2 weeks, including Hader just yesterday. And so they're both currently on the COVID IL. And in spite of that, the Brewers continue. They just won the series in Atlanta, and they keep moving forward. So I mean, if we get those guys back to full health going into September, where our schedule gets a little tougher, I really feel that this team is going to be able to win the NL Central. But again, they're the Cardinals and the Reds are still within striking distance. So I think we need to keep moving forward. As far as those two teams go, though, I really don't believe that their additions at the trade deadline were better than ours for the two teams chasing us. So I think that bodes well for us in the NL Central. And of course, the Cubs did pull off a fire sale of epic proportions and somehow traded all of their star players and really rebuilt their farm system. But I think that it's really going to make us not have to worry about them for definitely not this year and possibly a couple of years even. So that could be definitely a positive thing as well. However, over in the NL West, the Los Angeles Dodgers made a trade where they acquired Max Scherzer and Trey Turner. Not even arguably two of the top pitchers and position players out there. And so to add to your team that was already came into the season as like a juggernaut, I think is a little bit worrisome when it comes to a team like Brewers if they were to have to face them in the playoffs. What are your thoughts on that, guys?
Well, I didn't like the Dodgers before the trade, and now I think I said at the beginning of the year that if like the top three players on the Dodgers all missed like the entire year, they'd still make the playoffs. I don't know how true that was, but apparently, I mean, now they just grabbed two more. It's like unbelievable. Oh, what can you do? But the Dodgers have had a really good farm system for a really long time, and they're making trades like it works out really well for them. And when you have that much in the farm system, that helps a lot too. So I don't know. It's rough. You just want to be like, oh, great, the rich get richer. They've done it again. But I don't know. I mean, all you can do is battle them and hope you win, right?
I mean, to your point, I think that yes, it's a obviously a little disappointing to see a team like the Dodgers can get star players like that. And but I think that one thing that people keep forgetting is that the Giants are actually the first place team in that division right now somehow, and both the Padres and the Dodgers are behind them. So, well, I understand a lot of people being, looking at this trade and thinking how the Dodgers are getting a lot better, and they are. They're still trying to play catch up in their own division. It's not like it's a sure thing that they're going to be able to take over the league at this point.
Yeah, and of course, if they have to be forced to play a wild card game, I mean, they'll have one of like 4 or 5 aces to choose from to play in that game. But I mean, the bottom line is, it's hard they're definitely making the playoffs in some fashion. If they were to get bounced in the wild card game, that'd be great. But I mean, if you look at their rotation now, I mean, they have pretty much the best right-handed and left-handed pitchers of the current generation with Scherzer and Kershaw at the top of the rotation. And then they've got Walker Buehler and Julio Urias, who are having phenomenal seasons and are great talents in the South. And then, of course, there's some other, there's Trevor Bauer, who is paid, I think, $100 million for a couple of years of pitching for the Dodgers, and he's possibly not even going to be eligible to play. And if he is, obviously they're just completely stacked. And then you look at their lineup. I mean, they just got Corey Seager back and Mookie Betts both back from injury, and they added Turner to an already sick lineup. Max Muncy is a really underrated player. I don't know. Right now, on paper, they're far and away the best team in baseball, in my opinion. But I guess that'll make it all the sweeter when the Brewers knock them off in the playoffs, or possibly even avoid having to play them. That'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, you said that they had 4 or 5 aces. Unfortunately for them, the reason why they had to make a panic move like this and grab Scherzer and Turner is because they were, again, as Vince alluded or pointed out, they not only are they chasing people in their own division, but they're clearly not as good as the Brewers. And, you know, we have 6 aces. So, I don't know. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous, but I hate to say it, but I think LA might be a little jealous of this Milwaukee Brewers team. And it's unfortunate, but they're just going to have to deal with it.
We're certainly getting more bang for our buck, you know, in terms of dollar amounts being paid to the players compared to, you know, the Dodgers. I think that's a big win.
And even though our offense has made such improvements, like we said, since May, and it's just getting only better with the acquisitions now. But if you look at our rotation, not only is, you know, have we emerged from the beginning of the season with like 3 legitimate aces in Burns, Woodruff, and Peralta, but like Scott alluded to, the back end of our rotation has been filling in pretty admirably. I mean, if you look at Adrian Hauser, Brett Anderson, and Eric Lauer, they've all been really, I mean, pretty clutch for what is to be expected of them, and they're having great years too. And then, of course,
Craig, could you just repeat what you said about Anderson again? I'm sorry, I missed it.
He's been pretty solid. I mean, I was not doing backflips over the fact that we re-signed him as a free agent, but again, he's getting outs, so that's all we need is out-getters on this first team. Big win over the Braves yesterday, so
yeah, great game.
Yeah, it's and then let's also kind of a nostalgic trade that we made after the trade deadline, in fact, earlier today, and that's the acquisition of former Brewer John Axford, who was toiling in the minor leagues at AAA for the Toronto Blue Jays and doing fairly well. And apparently, since he was not on their 40-man roster, he was eligible to be traded after the trade deadline. And I guess we're just giving away cash for them. We've got plenty of that laying around as the Milwaukee Brewers. So that was pretty.
It was $1. It was $1, literally.
What?
Yeah, the trade was for, no joke, that came out later today. The trade was for $1, which is actually about 80 cents Canadian.
That's like 2 ounces of beer at Miller Park.
Right.
Well, wait, are you telling me the Canadian dollar is worth more than the American dollar? Damn it.
I mean, it's probably just, you know, a fluke, I'm sure, but
yeah.
Yeah, one US dollar. Wait, I believe it. Yeah.
Might be that way around, but whatever. Getting John Axford bucking some change. That's great. I mean, I thought it'd take at least a 6-pack of Canadian beer to get them, but apparently it was less than $1 or whatever. That's awesome. Totally worth
Some
it.
Labatt Blue. On our last road trip.
$1 Canadian dollar equals 80 US cents. Yeah.
This might be a good segue into letting our listeners know that back in May, last time we heard from Scott, we actually did take our broker review trip to Florida, to the Tampa area, and we were able to see the Blue Jays' very last home game at Dunedin Stadium there against the Tampa Rays, and quite an awesome game. It's a wonderful afternoon with you fellows, and I know Vlad Guerrero hit 2 majestic bombs that day, and then we followed up by being able to see the Rays have a home game at Tropicana Field too. What are your guys' thoughts on seeing our little Florida experience and seeing the Tropicana Field?
Well, Craig, do you want to quickly recap Rowdy Tellez's first experience with the Brew Crew Review? I know that now that we've got press passes back, we'll probably interview him about it soon, but we just were waiting for Scott. But do you want to recap?
Yeah, that's right. We did have first row standing room seats in the right field bleachers, first row, and Rowdy Tellez hit a home run. Well, it would have been a home run, but Scott dropped the ball. And so it turned out to be a run-scoring double. But, yeah, because of that, the Blue Jays considered trading him from his lack of power. and traded to the Milwaukee Brewers here this past month. And so, yeah, we like to say that we had a hand in that, or Scott did at least. So
I've never dropped a baseball in a game. Sorry. I have a fielding percentage of 1,000. But he did hit the ball so high in the air that one, if not both, of the outfielders completely lost sight of it because it was hit so high. And everyone in the bleachers was just scrambling around, looking at each other and ducking and covering their heads because we all knew that the ball was going to go somewhere very close to us, but no one could see it. It was just right up in the sun, and just there was just no way. So it was kind of interesting. But yeah, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, maybe if we would have seen it, we could have reached over the wall and maybe gotten a hand on it and then promptly have been ejected, and it would have been a double anyway. So I think he got a triple, though, so it would have cost him a bag.
And John Axford, as we're taping this, is now on the 9th inning, is officially made a return for the Milwaukee Brewers. Pretty exciting stuff to get our former closer of about 10 years ago back on the team. Always liked the guy. Unfortunately, it probably only came about because of the fact that that positive COVID test for Josh Hader, our current closer. But anyway, I don't know how long he'll be on the team or when we'll get utilized, but it's fun to have him back on this team, especially if he's going to be able to get a championship World Series ring out of it eventually. That's pretty awesome.
Does he still have a cool mustache? I have no idea. I haven't seen it.
He does. Well, no, he's got kind of a beard and it's gray now. I guess we're all getting a little older, but yeah.
That's fair.
They'll probably shave it off. I do think this would make kind of a cool movie. Hey guys, I did want to throw out a quick trivia question for both you and our listeners. John Axford's last appearance as a Brewer came in 2013. So we've got, what is it, an 8-year difference between his last appearance and tonight. Can anyone name, though, there is a Brewer with a longer span between his Brewers final game before? How do I want to phrase it? There's a larger gap between a guy who appeared for the Brewers and then appeared later in his career for the Brewers. Can anyone name the guy with the longest gap in Brewers history?
Hank Aaron.
No. Well, if it was between the Braves and the Brewers, but I still don't even think that gap was that big. Or was it? Yeah, probably. But question, I don't know if I have a guess on this. I'll say Gorman Thomas.
That's a great guess, Craig. Gorman appeared for the Brewers in 1983 before being traded to Seattle, and he reappeared with the Brewers, though, in 1986. So not that long. Scott, this also counts as stepping up to the plate. So take as long as you need to.
Well, I guess Hank Aaron wouldn't count, but and I guess Lorenzo Cain wouldn't count because he didn't break through in the majors with us.
No, he did. He did, actually.
Oh, he did? Okay, then I'll say Cain.
That's a great guess as well. Cain, 2010 was when he appeared with the Brewers, and he returned in 2018. So that's pretty good. The actual answer, though, is Doug Jones. Brewers debut in 1982 and returned in 1996.
14 years.
And
yep.
And he was a dominant closer for like a year and a half or two.
I just thought I'd throw that one out there tonight, guys. I actually heard that from our buddy in Anonymous Doors, Tom Carter. So that's where I got that from. So thank you, Tom.
Oh, nice. Is Tom cool with us saying his name now? I guess, he has nothing to lose. There was nothing,
we said he actually said that his new place of employment also was threatening to let him go if we kept revealing him. He does. I don't know. It's insider trading that he gives us, but whatever. Maybe that's the reason too. I'm not sure. Whatever.
Did not know that.
But what was your guys' overall thoughts on how, to me, pretty exciting, not just as a Brewer fan, but overall the baseball trade deadline this year seemed like to be the most exciting ever. I was really kind of shocked, and the amount of star players and all-star level players that got traded basically within that last 24 or so hours before the trading deadline. Were you guys a little bit surprised by that at all? Or, I mean, what were your overall thoughts?
Well, I personally can't remember another deadline quite like this one. I mean, it was nuts. And, generally we'll see, there's a lot of minor trades and maybe a big trade or two. And, you'll find that maybe one team dumps everybody at the deadline. But as you guys know from our pre-production meeting, I went to the Nationals and Cubs game last Friday night in Washington, D.C., and it was crazy. Like, both franchises had just been decimated that day. They weren't alone. I mean, they probably were hit the hardest, I would say, with the Cubs trading, Kimbrel and Baez and Rizzo and Bryant. But it was just, both teams had traded a ton of guys in the, a couple days before the deadline hit. And yeah, I certainly can't remember anything like it. It was really funny because, looking around the crowd, most people were wearing either Nats gear or Cubs gear, and just about all the people who were wearing jerseys of guys who got traded that week. It was like watching a minor league baseball game. It was awesome. It was really fun.
Well, I mean, the Nats traded their ace, their best player, and their closer, so it doesn't get much more than that.
Right, I know. And they traded, Yan Gomes, who was their catcher, who was also on their World Series team, and they really unloaded a bunch of players. And again, it was funny. Outside of a couple like Ryan Zimmerman jerseys, literally just about everybody was wearing a jersey or jersey or whatever of somebody who had been traded in the last 48 hours prior to the game.
Yeah, but I think baseball fans and the fans of even those teams are smarter than they were, like, say, 20 or so years ago, because instead of being devastated, I think that they're hopeful for the future with the assets and the young players, minor leaguers that they did get. And at least they know that their front offices for the teams they root for kind of have a plan in place. Whereas if you're a fan of the Colorado Rockies or even the Anaheim Angels, you've got to be just shaking your head on as far as like what exactly is their plan moving forward. But yeah, no, I thought it was pretty exciting. I was really kind of shocked at the amount of guys that got moved, especially for the Cubs to trade all of their players and really completely 100% gut the remaining players left over from their world championship team. So, I mean, that was kind of interesting to see. I didn't think they were going to be able to pull that one off, but they did do it. So,
well, it was kind of the perfect storm when you think about it. So last year we only had the 60-game season, and so everybody kind of felt that they were in it, especially when you had like the extra wild card spots or whatever. So not only do you have that, then now this year it kind of seems like for the most part, at least in the NL side, people kind of know where they're going to land, sort of. Like, there's a lot of teams that are pretty well set up for to make a playoff push, and then there's a lot of teams that aren't. And so, I don't know. I think all that put together, it was just time. And not only that, but like a lot of these franchises haven't been making as much money as they used to. So that winds up being kind of an issue too. Like, obviously 2020 was a bust, and 2021 we're okay again for now, sort of. And I say that as like a third of the Brewers team is out with COVID, but it was just a perfect storm. People really wanted to get what they could for a lot of these like players. Unless you're the Colorado Rockies, in which case I don't know what you're doing. Why is Trevor Story on the Rockies still?
Those are all really good points, Scott. And I'll add in the Cubs case too. The other part of their perfect storm was that they had locked up all these guys, or brought them all up around the same time, so they were all going to become free agents, after this season. So that obviously pushed things a certain way. They couldn't really look at this as just, we're having a bad year with a good core. We'll see how it goes next year. They had to make a decision, and basically, if they we're going to fall too far out of contention, which they did. And I'll just remind people, after the Brewers played them, is really when their tailspin started. I think that they had to make the call that they did. So it was, you just hate to see it with the Cubs. I will say, as a quick funny aside, I ran into a guy wearing a Cubs jersey during the day when I was in DC, and he was wearing a Rizzo jersey. And I just said, something along the lines of, "Hey man, tough day." He goes, "Oh, I'm actually more of a Yankees fan." So I think there's some bandwagon jumpers going on.
Unbelievable.
Interesting. So here we are in August. The Brewers are in really good shape. I really think that our offense has been really clicking, and I think we really need to have Yelich back and healthy and hitting like the Yelich he was. I mean, even if he doesn't go full back to MVP form, he's got to really step it up over what he's been producing last year, which everyone, of course, got kind of a pass for the 2020 season. But this year, he's lacking power. And his overall numbers are just pretty pedestrian, to be quite honest. And if the Brewers are gonna, make a run deep in the playoffs, we're gonna need that Christian Yelich to perform better. So.
Yeah, it's extremely disappointing. I mean, when you think about it, I'm sure that when we were talking about this a couple of years ago, I was clamoring, saying like, you made this big trade, and our window is closing, and we really need to sign him to an extension, or else you're really gonna, just upset the fan base even more than they already are. Like, this is a fan base that's just so hungry, especially and congrats to the Bucks, by the way, for bringing a championship to Milwaukee. That's wonderful. I hope the Brewers can do the same. But I mean, this is a fan base that just really, really wants that. And if you let Yelich walk, it would have sent the wrong message. So instead, we signed him to this huge mega deal, and he's been nothing but pedestrian ever since. So next time we think, oh, we should go all in or sign a big extension, like, this is going to be the thing that people are going to point to, unfortunately. So I don't know. I really hope he gets it together soon.
Let's hope so.
The contract, I still think it'll be fine, and we won't regret the contract. That's just my thoughts, but.
Yeah, it's still too early in the deal probably to tell, but my only concern is that these are the seasons that we were really counting on Christian Yelich to not only live up to the value, or not only live up to the contract, but to exceed the value of the contract.
Right.
Because I think that you kind of plan for those later years for some decline, and we gave Lorenzo Cain, for instance, that extra year at the end, and you kind of plan for the fact that he's not going to be as good in his age, whatever, 36 or 37 season, as he is in his age 33 or 34 season. So that's my concern with Yelich isn't the contract as much as it is the age that he is right now compared to the age he will be in, 9 more seasons or whatever we lock him up for.
Yeah. But I do think he's going to rebound, and not only rebound for that whole contract, but he's going to rebound big time the rest of this year once he gets back and healthy and back in the lineup. So pretty excited. Hopefully I'm going to be able to go out and catch some games here soon. But definitely. Thanks for joining us again, guys. Scott, it's great to have you back.
Yeah, Scott, great to talk to you.
It's great to be here, and I'm really sorry if I don't have like all of the insight that normally I provide. I haven't talked to Tom Carter as much as I probably should have lately, and if I'm being perfectly honest, I haven't watched as much baseball as I'd like to. I know that the fans are wondering what took me so long, but I'll say that I recently purchased a puppy, a Maltipoo, and her name is Penny because she apparently loves to eat the copper wire embedded in the cords of everything I own. So it's been me running around like a crazy person, just yelling "No, Penny" over and over. So it's going really well. But yeah, it's been wild. But
it sounds fun.
Yeah, fun stuff.
It sounds fun. Keep the pictures coming.
Yeah, congratulations on the new edition.
Yeah, congrats, Scotty. That's great.
Yeah, we got another Brewer fan.
You'll have to post a picture of you and Penny on Twitter for our fans, which, again, you can give us a follow, Brew Crew Review 1, or make sure that you send Scott your questions via email, Brew Crew Review Podcast with an s@gmail.com. I know that he will get to them between potty training sessions with Penny.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. I can't wait. Little monster. Yeah, there's nothing better than being woken up at 5 a.m. on a regular basis.
All right. See you guys, and go Brewers.
All right, guys, go Brewers.
Go Birds.
Do, do, do.